We are back, and the tea has been prepared by Deepak. Tea bag, but it is very nice. Perfect amount of sugar and perfect amount of milk. Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you.
Going to the next question, do you think that these cultural practices they help in exploring the gender?
See, like I just told you, this ritual, right? It's traditional, right? It's a traditional practice, the karaga, the procession, and there are many such in this country, right? I'm sure from where you come from, you might, if I tell you a few of these, it might trigger some memories. Like in the south, in Tamil Nadu, the transgender women they gather together in the month of April or May, I think, at a place, a small village by the river, and it's called the Kuvagam Festival, right? The Kuvagam Vida, where basically they kind of enact a scene from the Mahabharata. So different kinds of these communities have always found a way to fit into a narrative, tell a story, and enact it as ritual. And it's tradition in different ways, right? So we can't just say that what we know or we are aware of is tradition. There's also the tradition in Karnataka of the Jogapas. Jogapas are kind of like, like the Devdasi system, the Devdasis who are dedicated to the goddess Yelama. Of course, there are issues with these practices also in terms of how these communities are exploited. But in a way, they have in the past, in some remote past that we don't have access to, or traditional past, if you can call it, have had that space to be who they want to be, outside of gender, outside of having to be a man or a woman, within the confines of also relating to something like a goddess or a god, having a spiritual access, so to speak, having a connection to spirituality, to dignity, to being able to, also to be able to express themselves. So the Jogapas are actually fantastic musicians, and only recently they were recognized, and a classical Carnatic singer like T.M. Krishna was roped into a project where he sang alongside the Jogapas, and it has never happened where classical musician sits with these quote-unquote lowly folk musicians and shares the stage and sings together. But it's happening today, right? And so tradition is meeting tradition in very different ways also. And we are discovering new things about ourselves which we didn't know existed in our own traditional practice, which I find very fascinating. So of course there is spaces. Of course there are spaces beyond which, beyond our conception of what is man, what is woman, what are roles, and of course how the modern period affects these roles. Today we can talk about women being liberated, the metrosexual male who is probably not the patriarchal male or the alpha male, who's ready to go into the kitchen, cut vegetables, do various things, wear pastel shades or wear pink without being called or named queer or whatever. It's all happening in the liberal space, but I feel it can happen if we could in some ways relate and connect to certain kinds of traditional roots, which are not the kind of hollow tradition that in a way that sometimes gets created in our culture, sanskari kind of tradition. That is just one way of talking about things or thinking about tradition, but there are number of instances that in community practice or in ritual or in mythology, folk mythology, folk oral histories, there are new possibilities, and I am very excited in terms of, as an artist, to explore these in my work.
Do you think that gender has a fixed entity? Like a human being can only be a man or a woman?
So is it biologically, culturally, socially,
all
experientially?
All together.
All together. Can it be? I don't know. I mean, what are your experiences with?
See, I think that biologically, though, definitely it is set. Emotionally, I don't know, because I've hardly met people who feel otherwise. So, what does that mean to you? Like, is it one fixed entity? Can it be like only this or that?
I feel it's so connected to the roles, right? In the sense, generations, if you look at different generations of men and women, say in Indian society, there's already that difference in terms of a mother, daughter, granddaughter, in terms of how they perform their womanhood. And within that, there are different kinds of variations. And so, same with men. And then there are people who, talk about being in between, like not really feeling or not being able to play that role fully or effectively. Like you had some doubts about your emotional self, whether it is fully woman, fully feminine, or fully a woman, right? So I think we all have it's a spectrum, right? Like of what we could feel. It can't be fixed. It's one part of it is strongly taught, cultural, and the more we think it should be this way, we try to fix it, and then whatever doesn't fit, we again try to force fit it, or we try to discard it. And we can't discard this because these are bodies, these are people, these are communities, these are beings who have a right to exist. And why are they being discarded, and why is there this battle to fix everything? Why can't things be fluid? Why does a man have to say and prove his masculinity all his life? Why does a woman have to prove her virtuous femininity all her life? Like, who sets these rules? Where are these rules being set? What is the game? It sounds like a devious game to me. And I feel like in that process, the true expression of who you can be, sometimes even being beyond gender, because I felt that also, like being genderless doesn't necessarily mean that I don't feel male, so I must be feeling feminine, or I don't feel feminine, so I must be feeling masculine. Sometimes there are moments where I haven't spoken to others or haven't read much about this, but I felt completely genderless. Neither am I a male or a female.
Completely genderless.
Completely genderless. So then how do you fit these experiences into male and female? And I don't know. I don't think it's fixed.
But don't you think that society also has a role to play? As in, when you asked me that question, I thought it is also society. Society also tells us, now we have to stay here.
It's fixing it for you, right? Society tries to fix it for you. Culture tries to fix it for you. So maybe it's not fixed. And we think we have to fix it and swim like a goldfish within that small bowl. So it's time to explore and time to have more narratives of what makes what feels like being a man, or what feels like being a woman, or feels like just being a human being, And it can be even beyond all these experiences that we think it can be. I feel it can be much beyond what I've told you about my experience and my stories. And but when I look around, I feel it's kind of so rigid, and it's getting more and more rigid. Like, this is how masculinity should be expressed, or this is how manhood should be found, or this is what womanhood is. And I feel it needs a more deeper exploration, not this very liberal exploration where yes, let's all get westernized and wear skimpy clothes and have item numbers, and that's a way to be progressive and open about it. Maybe it is, but then how do you get a little more deeper in your expression? How do you get a little more deeper in your exploration about gender? I don't know. I mean, I feel for me the answer has been to look within tradition in odd places, like not in the kind of tradition that is told to you but which you don't see. So I value that kind of research that exists in the arts, that is constantly finding these cultural spaces, shedding light on it, being able, for me to be able to access it. I feel a lot more young people need to be told these stories, need to see these experiences, need to connect to these memories in some ways, to affirm their experiences, which wouldn't fall within these stereotypes. They wouldn't fall within what society fixes for you. So gender, I guess, is not fixed, is how I see it.
No, sitting here today, I completely, I wouldn't say that I completely understand it, but Maybe one day I will, because I think I don't have the knowledge, and without knowledge to talk, it's unfair. I think I have to go and do a lot of reading. But thank you very much for coming, Deepak. It was wonderful having you, because you have opened so many doors. My knowledge. I've gained little bit. I wouldn't say fully, but I've gained little bit, and I will probably go after you leave. Maybe then I will read. Thank you very much.
Before we go, can I ask you something, like, to connect to your memory of a story that's like your favorite story of a goddess? What comes to your mind?
Goddess to Durga.
Okay.
Any day.
Okay,
Any
so-
day.
And what's your favorite story about Durga?
Durga's homecoming. When she comes, because she's our daughter, so when she comes to her hometown, to her father's house, that whole celebration, and then killing Oshur and then coming down to Kolkata, beautiful.
So the episode of killing, where would you put it? Masculine, or is it a masculine act or a feminine act?
You absolutely caught me. Definitely a masculine act.
Really? That's how you see it.
Because see, any woman is very empathetic. She would not kill. She's a nurturer. She gives birth. So, but when it was needed, she was thought to be the most powerful goddess. But I don't know. I probably have
How
to.
would you think Durga would see it? Do you think she would look at it as being masculine at that point, or it's just being the woman that she is?
Maybe she thought herself as a savior. I don't know. You want to correct me?
No, I'm just exploring, because I feel it's not about knowledge, it's about memory, and these stories are in our memory. And if we learn to look at them again and retell the story in a different way, then maybe we can explore this idea of whether gender is fixed or not, and access something new, like get something new from that story which can become a part of who we are. That's my exploration of tradition, mythology, narrative as an artist. So yeah, it was great being here and to be able to share all of this and talk about this as well. It's been wonderful for me too.
Thank you very much
having me.
for coming to my house. And before we leave, so much we have spoken about Mahabharata, that now that when I think that when Arjun went to Virat Raja's kingdom, he actually cross-dressed, and so was Shikondi. Those two characters. Now I am actually thinking that it was there back then also. So on that note, I would like to say goodbye. Take care of yourself, and I will not let Deepak go today. He will have to make at least one sabji for me today.
Half-cut onions. Yes.
Okay, see you. Bye bye.